Hey guys, welcome to the Grateful Anglers podcast. I'm Big John.
And I'm John Bondi, and today we're with local master troller, Mark Campeau. What are you smiling for?
I'm excited about this one because I'm new to trolling, and Mark's one of the best around. I was really new at this game. I believe it was last year or the year before. And I came in from City Marina there, and I was fishing amongst all these boats out there, and I thought I had a really good day. I think we had like 6 fish in the boat for 2 of us, and old Mark came in here and to the boat ramp, and I think he had about 19 or 20 fish to our 6, and I thought, wow, I'm really doing something wrong. And I think he knew that a little bit because he saw us out there in the same area. And he gave me some great tips right off the bat. He said, you know what? Go home. First thing you do, look it up, do what you got to do, but calibrate your reels, and run the smaller line and the precision trolling app. And anyways, we're going to get into it here with Mark. Once again, he's a pro walleye fisherman. He's fished numerous tournaments.
Tell us about your tournament, your notable accomplishments there with you and your partner, and some of the big events you've done well in.
My partner is Greg Whitson. We fished the Masters Walleye Tour. We fished some of the Michigan Walleye Tour. In 2015, we won the World Championship on Lake Erie for the Masters Walleye Tour. In 2015, we were fortunate enough we won an Escanaba tournament. And then 2017, we won the Masters Walleye Detroit River Tournament, and we qualified for the NTC Championship. There's usually the qualifying, that's the best teams from North America. There's usually 250 to 300 teams, and we came in the top 10 in 3 of them tournaments. The St. Mary's River, we came in the top 10. We came in the top 10 on Mississippi River. And we came in Green Bay, Wisconsin. And we've been fortunate to have a lot of top 5 finishes in a lot of the Masters walleye circuits and that.
And a lot of the time, you had a lot of these tournaments, you're using these offshore planer boards. And today we're going to teach everybody about how to use them trolling in this area.
Yeah, and also, guys, Mark's another local fisherman on the Detroit River, Lake St. Clair, and Lake Erie. And we're so blessed to have so many different ways to fish around here. And for years I've always thought that walleye are caught on bottom and that's it. Well, Mark, why don't you tell us how these offshore boards allow us to fish a little bit higher, and those walleye are actually higher in the water column?
Yeah, the whole idea behind the offshore boards is to spread your lines out, to get, like, you can run multiple lines and have, say, 50 feet apart off the side of the boat, and you take a wider swath down the lake. So, and a lot of times your boat spooks high fish in the water column. Okay. So the whole idea is my first line into the water, my outside board, is going to be a line that I run my bait up the highest.
Okay.
Because the fish are all being spooked out to the side. And then when your boards are out there, you're kind of spooking them to them out boards. Yeah. The closer you get to the boat, the fish go down because they're closer. My second rod out would be a little bit deeper.
Yep.
And my third rod out, if I'm fishing with 2 guys in Michigan water, wherever the amount of rods you can run, which is legal, would be the closest rod to the boat goes the deepest.
Okay.
And it's much easier when you're pulling your board in with a fish to come across lines that are deeper in the water column, right, so you don't get hung up.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense. And I want to just touch on a point that you said there, because I had a question for my buddy. I said, you know what? How come when I fish Lake St. Clair for walleye with the boards, I said I'm not seeing the amount of marks as I am on Lake Erie in the deeper water, but I'm still catching good fish on Lake St. Clair? And he said, John, you're fishing, you could be fishing anywhere from 11 to 13 feet, 14 feet on Lake St. Clair. And he said, when you run over them with your kicker motor, those fish are going to the sides. He said, so those fish are there, and that's why they're going to hit your offshore tackle boards. Yep. and that's why you're not seeing them on the craft all the time. So that was kind of cool to learn that.
Yeah, so why don't we when we get started here, why don't you just explain the basic mechanics behind one of these boards, what you do, what you know, and just how they work physically.
Okay, I'll just grab a rod. So the whole idea behind the board, there's a right-hand board and there's a left-hand board. The right-hand board goes on the starboard side and the left-hand board goes on the port side. When you put it in the water, you'll see how it cuts the water, the angle of the front of the board. So it cuts the water. So when you're letting it out, say you're letting the board out, you're keeping pressure on it, it pulls away and it goes away from the boat because the angle being cut, because you're moving forward and that pulls the board out. And you adjust how far you want to let the board go out on your reel. You just keep letting it out, and generally my furthest board from the boat probably will be about 150 feet.
So when you get a fish on that outside board, you don't take that inside board and let it go out to where the outside board was, because the bait's at a different depth.
Correct.
So you just leave them in place.
Yes.
Okay.
And it all depends. Like if I'm fishing in a tournament and I know it's a big fish, I will clear that side because I don't want to get tangled and start dragging in more boards. But when I'm just pre-fishing or bringing people out, I very seldom clear that side of the boat to pull a board in.
Yeah.
Very seldom. I mean, I'm not saying that I don't do it, but I do it sometimes. And a lot of times, your outside board, when you get a fish, your board goes back.
Yeah.
And the first thing I do is I go to the back corner, the opposite corner of the boat. I go to that back corner and I start reeling from that back corner, and you can bring that board in behind the boards, and 9 times out of 10 there won't be any problems getting caught up on the other board.
So you're just kind of leaning out and letting it kind of work its way, and then
Yes.
Yeah,
and you can even open the
let it
and,
slide back.
watch it and just keep pressure on it and let the fish take it back further and further.
Yep.
And then, like I say, I go to the opposite corner of the boat in the
Opposite
back, and I keep the line out as far as I can there, and I start reeling, and that brings the board across.
Nice.
And a lot of the times when you get a fish on the board, the fish comes up to the top of the water column. He comes up higher. So you're already above the other boards.
Yeah, it's going to clear your other lines.
Okay, so let's talk about where the lines clip in, where the baits come off, and just approach it so if a total newbie's watching this, they understand.
Okay, so this is your main line. This is a clip to, it's either going to be a crankbait, a spinner, or it could be an inline weight with a spinner on it, whatever. This is going to be in the water. You're letting this go to a certain depth that you want to go. Say you want to be a certain depth, and a bait runs a certain depth. Well, you let that out on line counting reel to where you want to go. Then this is in the water. Then you take the board. This is a right board, starboard side. So you take this and you're going to stick it in that clip like this. You're going to take this clip. You're going to give yourself 4 to 6 inches of slack in here between the two clips. Whoop. I'm backwards.
Don't be picking on Mark.
So you clip it into the main line in the front. Then you'll have this clip, and you're going to clip it in the back. And you'll note this is a OR19, and this is an OR16 clip. The same tension clip, but if you notice, in the little red clip, there's a little extrusion in there.
Yep.
So this is when you put this in, you put it, can you see here? You
We're
put
all
it behind. So that board, now getting pulled out in the water. You put the board in the water with your bait, and you start letting your line, you release the bail, you start letting your line, and as you're trolling, this board starts pulling out to the side of the boat. You keep going, you bring it out. I usually, because I know I try to keep my boards 50 feet apart, is just a general rule.
Yep.
Like some days, if it's rough, you can't run your boards out that far.
Yeah.
You just change how far you keep your boards apart. So I let my board out, the first board, if I'm putting 3 boards in the water on that side, my first board's going out 150 feet from the boat. I look at my line counter. I've already got 40 feet in the water of the lure. Okay, so now I look at my line counter. I'm going to go to 190 feet on my line counter, because I know now that board goes out there. I put it in a rod holder. I let my next lure out. It's going to run a little deeper than my first lure, so then I'll let that one out. It might be 60 feet, so then I know I want to be 50 feet from the other board. So instead of 150, now I'm going to go 100.
100, yeah.
So the total length on the line counter will be 160.
Yeah.
So then I'll do the same procedure on the third board. I let it out. It's going to be deeper. I'll put that board away from the boat as well. So then you got 3 boards running the same out there.
See, over time, John, professionals like Mark have designed what they call a dive curve chart, and there's even an app now called the Precision Trolling app. And you, like, if I bought a flicker minnow from you, number 11, I can input that in my app, and it's going to tell me exactly how much line I got to be behind that clip to accommodate that lure at a certain speed.
So most people are running 12-pound mono. Is that what the app
The
is
app
based
uses 10-pound
Trilene XT.
XT, and the diameter I think is 12 thou.
Yep.
And now if you can mimic, like I use Suffix.
You use Suffix 12, right?
Suffix 12 because it 10-pound trilene diameter is the same. Suffix got a line that come out. It's got the same diameter, so the resistance in the water is the same.
So always mono.
I'm a mono guy. I'm not a braid guy for walleyes. Not always. It's your preference.
I actually, like he said, mimicked. I mimicked that 10-pound, and I went with what I go with 15 XT, and the millimeters almost at 12. I just wanted that little bit more beef in my line, especially on St. Clair, because I'm worried about the whole musky thing out there.
You know, the musky thing.
I haven't got one yet on the boards.
I've never broken 10-pound test string on Lake St. Clair on a musky.
Okay, so
Really, eh?
what would be the only time, one of the only times you would switch to braid if you're using dipsy divers, or how?
Yes.
What,
Yeah, with dipsies, you switch to braid.
What pound are you using at that point? Because you got the smaller diameters.
It's probably 30-pound braid.
30-pound braid. Excellent.
And the thing we got to touch on is we talked about getting to the depth. Right off the bat, when you with your rod and reel, like you use line counter reels, they don't come when you just because you put string on them and you see a number on the reel. That is not the number your line's going out to.
Exactly.
It's your reels must be calibrated when you put string on them.
Because if you have less line, let's say you break off 100 yards.
Yes.
That reel's done.
That reel, the smaller spool going around,
yes.
It's got less
Yes.
cranks, and so. Yeah, so if you lose any line or you strip any line off, you got to recalibrate.
Yes.
Put that rod aside and come back. And you know, when Mark told me that at the boat ramp, not disrespecting or anything,
No.
I thought, how far could it be off? I went home and I put at 150 feet. I laid a big measuring tape on my lawn, and I was off by 3 feet on one of my reels.
Yep.
And that's going to change exactly. Well, that could be, especially on Lake St. Clair, you only got so much water to deal with. And sometimes when you're only like 20, 26 feet behind the board, you're pretty high. And if you're off by a little bit, then
it's huge. To me, the most important thing to me is knowing where my baits are in the water.
So give us a general layout when you put the rods out. Just give us a rundown on what you're trying to accomplish out there.
What you're trying to accomplish is getting all different depths of the water column and taking a wider swath, a bigger area, to get a bigger area going down the lake. You're spreading out your spread. So theoretically, you're actually taking up almost 100 yards.
Yeah.
When you think about it, because I'm 150 feet out this side of the boat, and I'm 150 feet out that side of the boat with the lines in the water. If I'm running 3 boards per side, and that's better than having 6 rods that are dropped off the side of the boat, which in turn you're only taking a 20-foot swath.
Exactly.
Or 25 feet. So, and not only that, you're spooking any high fish right away from the boat.
Now, especially on St. Clair, Mark, I know there's days when you decide to go to St. Clair just because Erie's going to be too rough. But you also know that St. Clair's really, really clean right now. So on those days, can you give us a little tip on how far you run out?
You run your baits as far from the boards, as far from the boat, depending on how calm it is. Okay. The further it is out, the harder it is to run your boards out further.
What's the furthest you've run them? Like
probably, I would say my furthest board from the boat has probably been 200 feet.
Wow. There you go, guys. You're getting a tip from the pro today. When the water's clean, run your boards out more.
It's definitely in shot one, especially when you're fishing in 12 to 14 to 15 feet of water.
Okay.
And you can be seeing nothing on the screen. And there's days when I've gone out and I'll tell you, there's nothing. The screen is blank. There's nothing. But I'll tell you what, and you're catching fish, them fish are spooked out. They're way out to the side.
Oh, sorry, John. I just have one more question while he's right there on that topic. So what is the advantage to running your boards in tighter to the boat? Like, why wouldn't you always run your boards out that far? Is there an advantage to running them in tight? Cause
there's less chance to lose fish, because the further you got to bring that board in, the more of a chance a fish has to get off. I generally, like I say, I run them, I have them 50 feet apart, and it takes a pretty good thing. And a lot of times the water has an off color or it's dirty. It does. You don't have to run that far. You know? And the thing about, you got to remember, the further you're out, the longer it takes you to get back in the water. If the fish, when you're in a tournament, you're trying, if you get a short window bite, you try and get back in the water as fast as you can and back to that same spot. Because you got to remember, you can't just take these boards and say, well, I'm going to let these boards go out now, because my high board, my middle board will now be on the outside. It's not my high board anymore.
Okay, I got you.
You can only do that once you figured out a pattern, the fish. Say, I find that I'm running my crankbait at 18 feet down. I got to let 100 feet of line, and that's the only place I'm catching fish. Is 18 feet seems to be the magic number. Well, I'll load every board up at 18 feet except the board next to the boat. And then I can take that middle board after, if I'm getting a fish on my outside, I just slide my middle board out there.
Okay, I got you.
I slide it to the outside, because now I know that when I put my next board in the water, I'll just slide it around, and that'll be my middle board.
Middle board.
And or sometimes you run all your boards at the same depth, so it don't matter. You can slide each board out.
And I guess the other advantage to running them tight to the boat too is if you're amongst a lot of other boats in the same area.
That's the thing too. You got to have respect for other boats.
Yeah.
I mean, you can't be coming through a pack of boats covering, 150 yard swath.
Okay.
So let me ask you this. So say you're on an average day out there, you got like a 1 foot chop.
Yep.
Are you trying to go across the waves, with the waves, against the waves, and how does current play a part? Because even when you're out in Erie or out in the middle of St. Clair, current is there.
Definitely. It's something each time I go, when I initially start up, I'll go with the current initially, unless the wind is blowing hard against that. If the wind's got more than what the current, I'll go with the wind. But 9 times out of 10, I start with the current, and I go, and I'll be fishing, and I won't fish a straight line. I'll turn on an angle. I'll turn back on an angle, and then when I start picking up fish, I see. Then I'll start what direction I'm going. Then I try and go across that. I'll just keep going back and forth across that. But you got to remember, your speed changes with current. Your speed changes. If you're going with the current, you might go. You always got to go faster.
Yeah.
Because you're lure in the water. You watch your blade, or you watch how the action is. When you're going back up against the current, you're slowing down. So,
I think what Mark's trying to say is, a lot of times when you see guys trolling at the mouth of St. Clair in the river, a lot of times they're only moving at 0.9 and 1, but their lure is actually have the action of 2 mile an hour.
Yes. So when you're out, let's say you're out in the middle of Erie or the middle of St. Clair, what speed are you trying to run generally?
It changes.
It changes based on the time of year.
The time of year is huge. In the spring, I start off at 0.9 miles an hour, and I'll run all the way to 1.5. But 9 times out of 10, it's probably around 1.2.
And 1.5 be your max for the
my
year.
max.
And
max for in the spring.
You'll see too, like guys in the fall, you'll see reports on the internet of guys fishing the middle of Lake Erie at 1.8 mile an hour. But then you'll hear reports of guys at the mouth of St. Clair Detroit River getting them at 1.2. Now, those baits are probably running the same in the water, but it's just that current that makes it. And another thing that's cool is, and I kind of learned this from you guys, just watching you, but sometimes we get a heavy west wind and you're fishing the mouth there. Sometimes you could just get away with running your trolling motor on the front and not even starting your kicker. We always use our trolling motor for steer. You do. I see you do it for steering. but sometimes we don't even have to fire that kicker motor up, and that's a whole different experience.
My kicker motor, it runs probably. I don't use my kicker motor. Only time I use my kicker motor if I got to go up against the current and I don't want to drain my battery on my thing. But if I don't have to use my kicker motor, I don't use my kicker motor.
Let me ask you this. Okay, so fish position. What percentage of the time are the fish flat on the bottom? What percentage of the time are they, say, halfway up? And then what percentage of the time are they within 10 feet of the surface? When you're out there looking at your graph, what are you finding on these walleye out there?
Early morning, the fish are up high. I find early morning the fish are really up high. As the sun starts coming up, they drop down. When I go out my baits, I'm running them high early in the morning. I run my baits high. I mean, I run sometimes I'll run 5 feet below the surface. So I'll start off 5-6 feet below the surface.
And
as the morning goes, they drop down.
Yeah.
Like he says, I've talked to other anglers that fish mid Lake Erie in the deepest water, but they don't fish for bows or anything. They just fish for walleye, and they don't even have downriggers on the boat. They say, you know what, we fish the top 30 all year round.
Yeah.
Top 30 or top 40 feet, and you can accomplish that with these offshore boards, and now Offshore Tackle offers snap weights and other things that you can get your bait down to that depth and catch those fish.
Why don't we talk about your different weight systems for the different levels in the water and how you're running them with these boards?
Yeah, show them your snap weights from Offshore Tackle.
Yeah, these are offshore. This is a guppy weight. This is a 2-ounce guppy weight. So I can run a spinner. This is a spinner, worm harness, a crawler, whatever you want to call it. I can hook that to my main line. I'll hook it to my main line, and there's a thing called the chart, the dive chart.
Yeah,
tells
what do they
you
call
for
it? 50 plus 2?
50 plus 2, or there's just a snap weight. When you put a snap weight on a weight, there's a chart to tell you when you let it out so many feet, this is going to take that lure down to that depth.
And that's all in the precision.
That's all in the
app
precision
too.
trolling app. And so you just put your spinner on the end of your rod, let your string out. There's a 20. I usually go 20 feet, to be honest with you. I'll let that out. I'll put my spinner on here or my crankbait. I'll put it on, and then I'll let it out to the depth where I want to achieve a depth, and I'll put this on. You just snap it on your string like this. You can see there.
They ever fall off?
No, because of the pin. The whole idea is you use this one because of the pin. There.
And then you'll let out like 20 more feet.
Yes, whatever the app tells you, the chart tells you, and then you'll get to the depth you want.
And then you snap your board on.
Yeah.
So these boards can take the weight, is what Mark's saying. And with that being said, you fish. You actually use these boards for lead core as well.
I do.
That's amazing. I learned that today, guys. I always thought, oh man, you're gonna need the big boards, or you're gonna need a mast, and you're seeing more and more boats without masts now, and they're just running the offshore tackle.
This is a board I would use for lead core. It's it's called an OR18 snapper clip.
Okay.
And you can adjust the tension, and you close it on the lead core like that.
Now, when you got lead core on that, do you move the slide weight in the back to a certain?
No, the weight's
it's fixed.
It's a fixed size. It comes like that. No, you run lead core on this, no problem. I run up to 7 colors on here.
Out of the box, guys, you can use them for lead core.
Sure,
that's pretty cool, man.
Just change the weight, the release. That's all.
That's good to know, because lead core it's in the works. I'm going to get a couple lead cores for the boat.
And you don't have to have, like, I fish Lake St. Clair. You wouldn't believe how much lead core I use on Lake St. Clair.
Really?
People say to me, lead core on Lake St. Clair, it's so shallow. Well, I'll tell you what.
What do you run, like spoons and stuff on it?
No, I'm running spinners off of it.
Okay.
I run spinners off it, but I'm using segmented. I use 1.5 colors of lead. I splice it into my mono.
Yeah.
And I let out 1.5 colors of lead, and then I just clip the board on the mono, and 1.5 colors, and I run it in the weeds.
Okay.
I run it through the weeds. It doesn't get caught in the weeds.
See that? You're afraid to fish weeds, guys, but there's fish there.
With a snap weight or a bottom bouncer, all you're gonna do is catch in the weeds.
Now,
With lead core, it doesn't catch the weeds.
when you're running lead core, like let's say Lake Erie, Big Lake,
Yep.
and you got, let's say you're running all boards, would you put your lead cores on the outside or the inside?
Be the inside.
Really, eh?
No.
I thought with the more lino, you would have had them on the
No,
outside.
the inside.
Yeah, cool.
Maybe we should
you
talk
want to achieve a depth.
Maybe we should talk just about baits through the seasons.
Yeah.
When do you switch over to the spinners and cranks and all that?
Yeah, early in the season, like if we get out in March, and that I'll run crankbaits. I'll run like a Rapala Husky Jerks, DJ12s, Bandits, and Hooligans are really good. And
I like those Hooligans. Those are new. I just started using those last year.
Really good.
So yeah.
Yeah, we got them here at
Yep.
Bondi's Fishing
Yep.
Shop, 3796 County Road 17 in Maidstone. Come
He's
on
got
down.
the inline boards too, guys.
We got the Hooligans, the Bandits, all that stuff. We got the big spools of mono.
The nice thing about the Hooligans, Mark, is they got 2 hooks instead of 3.
Correct. Yes, they do.
So
They
have
don't get
2
caught in
hooks,
the net.
Not as much.
Yeah.
And not only that, the Hooligans have a much louder rattle than any
yeah.
crankbait that I've used. And when the water's dirty, and I'll tell you, I never believed how much difference. 2 falls now I've been running Hooligans. I fished water that I wouldn't have even thought of fishing. I
Wow.
wouldn't have gone out and fished, but I had a guy come down from Texas, a friend of mine that wanted to fish. He flew down here and he wanted to fish. And when we went out, I says, Ray, man, I says, I don't think we're going to do very well. The water's chocolate milk. We went out, we put Bandits on, we put Hooligans on, and 9 to 10 fish that we caught
came on the Hooligans.
came on Hooligans, and it's all because of sound.
Yeah.
They have such a loud sound, and we limited out in less than 2 hours, and I wouldn't
Wow.
have even fished that water. I
Yeah,
wouldn't
yeah,
even thought
yeah.
of fishing that water. It looked like coffee,
Wow.
and it didn't make a difference. So
Yeah, they're definitely a nice bait, and I always come into Bondi's, guys, once a week. I buy a lure or 2, and last summer I really went through a whole Hooligan phase where I was starting to put those on. So I got tons of those, along with my Slim Shady Bandits and Flicker minnows and all that fun stuff too. But just a great bait. Now, do those? Because I didn't even download the app. I just been every time I put a Hooligan on, I go in my precision
Yeah.
trolling app and I just
Bandit.
Bandit.
Yep.
Are they pretty similar?
Yes. Well,
Yeah.
actually, they were on the app now.
Oh, good.
The Hooligans
Okay.
are on the
Cool.
app
Cool.
now.
Let's
I'm
talk
gonna have
about
to download
colors.
that.
Cloudy versus sunny. What's your, just in general terms for the newbies, what colors are they looking for based on the daily conditions and that?
Those are fighting words there.
You know, no, that colors, I still try and match what the fish are eating, to be honest with you. Like Lake St. Clair, it's perch. It's going to
Yeah.
be gobies, and there's going to be shad. In the spring and the fall, there's shad. They're just full of them. So I still try and match as natural. There will always be natural colors.
Match the hatch.
To start. Always.
I say the number
On-
one sellers that we have in here for all the years are the chromes.
Yes.
You know,
Yes.
they-
On sunny days, blue chrome, and that purple,
Oh,
blue, and
blue
purple
chrome,
chrome. Yes, for sure. But I am a firm believer. Color is not my number one.
So yeah, guys, it just goes to show you, man, these offshore boards, you can do anything with them. I mean, we have some of the best local pro fishermen on pro staff at Offshore Tackle. I mean, we got Mark, we got Greg Horkey, we got Rob Jones. Yeah, just a bunch of great guys and great fishermen. And this was their choice. And I think a lot of you guys were using this right before you were even pro staff.
Oh, for
It's
sure.
just,
I
I
mean,
mean, look at some of these, how weathered they are. There's nothing really to break on them, so you don't go through too many.
I was using offshore inline boards the first year that I could get them because I was running a small boat and I was sick of walking to the front of the boat,
Yep.
putting up a planer board mast, making big boards, going out, making clips, not having them release, pull
Yeah.
the boat. This makes it so easy, and for a guy in a smaller boat that wants to go out and get his lines out, and it's right hooked to your rod.
Yeah.
There's no standing in the boat and walking when it's rough. You can sit in the boat, you put your line in, you drop it in the water, you feed it out, you take it off, and they just don't make boards. Offshore has a full line. They're like everything you want for your fishing, they have it. I mean,
And the thing I learned in the beginning too from watching these guys is when I first started, I kind of had a Heinz 57. I had all mixed match. I had mixed match boards. I had mixed match rods, and kind of just watching these guys. All their boards were running pretty, and all my boards were all over the place. But there's something to that. When your boards are all running pretty and in a row, you can tell when one's out of line. Because sometimes you'll get a smaller walleye, and that board will be a little bit out of line. But if you have a bunch of different boards, you're not going to see that. So
and you won't find a better board that runs in rough water.
We appreciate you watching this show. If you got any questions, put them in the comment section. We'll try to answer them for you. But thanks for Mark coming out here this morning and doing another Grateful Anglers podcast. If you guys got any questions, just send us a message. And thanks for watching this week.
Yeah. I personally like to say thanks, Mark, for coming. And
I enjoyed it.
I would love to have yourself, maybe Rob Jones, maybe Greg Whitson or Greg Horkey. I'd love to have you here on another podcast, and you could just see what they're doing with the boards too. I mean, these guys are pros. They've been doing this for years. I'm new at this, guys, and I absolutely love it. I was a jigger, caster, and all that stuff for years, handliner, and like I said, I've always fished off bottom. And not that I didn't have respect for these guys, but a lot of it I never really knew existed. So a couple years ago, I said, I want to try and get in this trolling game, and it's fun. And it's something that you could bring anybody with you. You could bring kids, you could bring your wife, and that's one of the reasons I did it. I wanted to bring people out that don't fish all the time, and sometimes when you take them jigging, unless you're with somebody like John Bondi there and you're a guide, it's tough to teach them. It's tough to teach them how to fish and catch fish within a few hours, but I mean, you've always been successful at it.
We're lucky here because we're in the epicenter of the walleye trolling world. I mean, the guys that are good around here are the best.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And so have a guy like here, have Mark around here to help teach us is invaluable,
Yeah, guys, and when you see them, you see these guys out there, like, they're not going to give you, don't go up to them for spots or stuff, but general questions, they'll help you out, but it's just one of those things that you gotta respect them too, because they're tournament fishermen, and they can't give everything away, but like I said, it meant a lot when I was down at the boat ramp and I came in that day. I didn't have the amount of fish that you had.
Well, yeah.
And you told me, John, go home and calibrate your reels.
Well, I asked you what line you had on them, and if you knew, I mean, if you knew where your baits were running.
I had no idea.
If you don't, my biggest thing is knowing where my baits are going to be. If I can find where the fish are, you can figure out how to catch them.
Yeah, awesome. Well, we really appreciate you coming, and good luck up at Lake Simcoe.
Thanks.
So guys, come down, John Bondi, and get your offshore boards, get all your crankbaits. He's got a ton of stock in here right now. You got more stuff coming in like every day.
The pamphlet. They got an offshore pamphlet too.
Oh, okay. Right here.
It tells you all different techniques.
I'm taking one of these home today.
Yeah, that's an offshore new pamphlet. All their products, all different techniques on how to run, how you want to clip your rods, what each clip is for.
Yep.
Tadpole diving. They got tadpoles.
That's another show.
That's another
I
show.
want to talk about the tadpoles. And stuff.
That's a tadpole.
That's the offshore flyer. We got them here in the shop.
And they are. You can call them. They're pro staff. They give you any information you need. And all the guys that write articles in there are top-notch fishermen.
So come on down, guys. Get ready for spring. Johnny, give them your address once again.
3796 County Road 17 in Maidstone, Ontario.
There you go, guys. Cheers. We love yous all. Be positive and
happy fishing.
Happy fishing.
It's just right around the corner.
One thing